Good afternoon. Today, myself, Ariana Allen, and Phoenicia Young would like to share with you how educator preparation programs can support SETs of color who service urban schools. Why is this important? There is a significant amount of research on the needs and concerns of beginning special education teachers. However, the literature is absent of the voices of African American teachers during the induction years. We want to explore the problems, why diverse SETs leave, move, or stay in the field, what their challenges are, but more importantly, we want to examine solutions, the impact and the need for support during the induction period. There is no secret that half of our SETs leave the field within 5 years, primarily because of teacher burnout, school factors, and when we examine our teachers of color, there are additional factors as to why they leave, move, or stay. Many of our teachers of color are serving in school districts that are under-resourced. Many of our teachers of color themselves may have entered the field via an alternative pathway, and they also state that they suffer from racial fatigue. If we look at the problem solution slide, you'll note that the areas are not new. Our teachers lack the resources for their classrooms. Many of them lack preparation. They also lack administrative support and collaboration from their colleagues. They're often overburdened by caseload and paperwork. And there's a feeling of isolation. Those are the common teacher burnout and school factors presented by most SETs. Our teachers of color have additional concerns. Many of them state that their competence is questioned, their perception of their level of knowledge. Oftentimes they experience discrimination and microaggressions in the workplace. In addition, they find that they are assigned other roles. Specifically, many African American teachers of color in our field are seen as the disciplinarian. Our Latina or Latinx sisters and brothers are seen as the interpreters. Our teachers of color in the field have stated that not only are they or do they feel isolated, but because there is a limited number of teachers of color in our field at their school workplace, they feel out of place. They often feel pressured to be the representative of their ethnic and cultural group. And because they too may be the only special education teacher in their building, they don't seem to feel like they belong in the workplace. And so there are several solutions. Clearly, increasing those induction and mentoring programs and understanding the challenges that EPPs and our urban school partnerships can develop or bring about. Many of our urban school SETs, they don't have time to build the support and meaningful relationships with others. They also believe that there's a lack of induction strategies in the urban schools. And mentoring They want to have that experience. They need effective mentoring programs, but they also have stated that school districts underestimate the importance and the power of educator preparation programs, and that these two groups, school districts and EPPs, should develop effective programs and also partnerships. Our SETs in urban school settings and those of color are influencers. They are more sensitive to the needs of the students of color, whom we know that the majority of those being served in special ed are our Black and brown children. They, teachers of color, SETs, are committed to being collaborators and committed to providing the best education for our students of color in our special education programs. When we take a look at what we can do, what solutions can we develop, it is very clear to us. First and foremost, all educators and administrators in particular need to have effective, culturally responsive preparation and training to help eliminate the systematic or systemic discrimination that exists, policies and practices, and that the curriculum acknowledges the needs of the students of color as well as the teachers of color. That means centering the knowledge of families and education of color throughout the climate and the program that's being delivered. We know that induction and mentoring programs can alleviate the stress, the teacher burnout. It can create higher job satisfaction, decrease teacher attrition, well-trained mentors, strong administrative collaboration, ongoing professional development and learning, and targeted feedback and support are critical to enhance the retention of our teachers of color and SETs in the field. We, in Project CREED, have developed a supportive program for our SETs of color. Our next two presenters are going to focus on some of the ideas during the induction years and the level and types of mentorship that we offer our Project CREED scholars.
During our induction year, we completed a study process. Dr. Key wanted to know our needs and concerns of African American special education teachers. She first sent us an email, and each year we provided her with our school dynamics, school reports, principal evaluation, interview questions if we moved from school to school, but most importantly, she completed a 2-day visitation at our schools and completed multiple debriefing sessions with our principals, special education lead teachers, mentors, teachers, and with ourselves. So when Dr. Key came to our schools or came to visit us, when she came to visit me, I was in my second year of teaching, but I was at a new school. It's a separate school, the only separate school, special education school in District of Columbia Public Schools. And when Dr. Key came, she arrived. She used public transportation from the airport, and that was a great experience for her. And then when she got to my school from
the airport. She came in the afternoon, so she visited, and I gave her a tour of our facility. And then after we left my school, we had dinner, and she also introduced me to different scholars or different alumni who had already been through her different grants that she had in the past, and they are now able to serve as a resource for me being here in the DC, Maryland area. And then after we had our meet and greet, I dropped out a key off at her hotel, and the next morning I picked her up so that we could spend a full day at my school, so she'd be able to see my day from start to finish, and also interview my instructional coach, my principal, and the paraprofessionals that I work with in my classroom. And she met the students, and she listened to the different comments that my coworkers had to say about me, as well as my work. Um, and then after she spent the full day at my school, we debriefed and talked about the challenges that I had. She helped me with different challenges that I was currently facing as a special education teacher, and just providing me a level of comfort as I started on this new journey at the new school. So when she interviewed my principal gave her a lot of strengths and some weaknesses about the program. And she also interviewed, again, like I said, my instructional coach, and then me.
Just recently, Project CREED scholars, we completed a CREED impact survey. And this two-part survey, we focused on induction and mentoring support, as well as the teacher preparation program at North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University. The first half of the survey focused on induction and mentoring support. So we were asked to rate ourselves on how well our EPP, school or district provided induction and mentoring support. And if you look on the left hand of the screen, those were some of the items that we were asked. And if you look at the italicized wording in the parentheses, those were the responses given by the scholars. On the right side of the screen, you will see that two of the scholars stated that we need more post graduation support, and that mentor mentee relationships are very important, and that we should continue to build on those relationships. The second half of the CREED Impact Survey focused on our teacher preparation program at A&T, as well as Project CREED. We were asked to rate ourselves on what could our education preparation program do to support us or support teachers in general during their induction years. And as you can see on the left side of the screen again, those were some of the items that we were asked, as well as our feelings on how we felt we were treated during our induction years. On the right hand of the screen, you will see that some of the CREED scholars stated that we need to maintain mentor support amongst special education teachers of color, and that we need regular check-ins. We also need to provide more support with resume building, professional development workshops, interviewing skills, and give a space for us to vent about what's going on in our workplaces, because being special education teachers, we honestly didn't know who we can count on.
So, colleagues, positionality matters. Oftentimes when we have federal grants, we hire an outside evaluator. We have come full circle with Project CREED. There's no one better to evaluate the impact than those that you have recruited, prepared, and hopefully retained in the field. But what we find from our level of intensity with Project CREED is that there is much more work to be done. And so the missing voices of teachers of color are absent from the literature. We are hoping to add to the literature. In our closing remarks, both Ariana and Phoenicia would like to share with you why they have stayed and why they've been a mover, or why they have been a mover.
So I originally came straight out of North Carolina A&T, and from North Carolina to Maryland, where I served as, it was in a small county, and that was such an experience. I only stayed there for 1 year because, well, there were a lot of pros with Charles County and a lot of cons. A few pros that I would like to share, or is that they have an inclusion model for students with disabilities and students without. So the general education teacher and the special education teacher co-teach throughout the day, and that was great. However, there were a lot of behavior problems that the school, and I then realized it was more of a district thing and not really a school, just particular for my school. And I believe that there were a lot of behavior problems because majority of the teachers were white, and majority of the students were Black, and throughout the county. So there were often times where teachers didn't know or understand how to deal with the different behaviors. And instead, they would maybe make the situations worse, or they would end up having to call the police because students would get aggressive, versus using social emotional practices, and really being culturally responsive when teaching and working with the students. So that really kind of pushed me away from the district, into now where I am currently in District of Columbia Public Schools, which again, there are pros and cons there. The major pro with DCPS for me is the incentive pay. So although I only have like 6 students, but if I had more students on my caseload, then I would be compensated for that. And we also, as teachers, are compensated for being highly effective teachers. Whereas in Charles County, I had a caseload of about 30 some odd students, and I did not receive any compensation. I had to stay late every single night. So DCPS is the reason that I have been a stayer and have stayed in the special education field this long. And I will actually be a mover at the start of this upcoming school year. I will be moving into general education just to get that experience as well.
Ms. Young?
My name is Phoenicia, and I was a mover in the field. But all 3 of my teaching years were with Atlanta Public Schools. The one unique thing about my experience is that I was able to get a feel of the different clusters within my school district. So I started off in the North cluster, then I moved to the West cluster, and then the South cluster. So I was able to see how the district treated teachers principals, special education lead teachers amongst the different areas of Atlanta. During my first year of teaching, I was in the North Cluster. I really enjoyed being in that cluster, but I had to move because the school I was at was not Title I. I will say that my students of color, they did feel a little out of place because the school was very diverse, where majority of the student population was Caucasian. So it took me as their teacher to make them feel welcome in the school environment. As far as the special education department goes, it was phenomenal. My lead teacher was always there for me. I did have 2 legal cases, and my school supported me throughout the entire school year. And any resources that I needed, they were given to me. My second year of teaching, I moved to the west side of Atlanta, and that experience was completely different. Majority of the student population was African American. My principal really didn't know much about the special education program at the school because the school was being revamped. So every teacher at my school had to basically reapply for their teaching position, and then they brought in new teachers. So that experience for me, if it wasn't for Creed, I wouldn't be who I am today, because a lot of my colleagues looked up to me to be the saving grace because my lead teacher wasn't there often. So the district would come in, and I will say that experience really taught me a lot on how to deal with behavior issues, family collaboration, and mental health. So the reason why I left that school is because it really took a toll on my mental health. And so then I moved to the South Cluster of Atlanta Public Schools. And I just felt in the South Cluster at my school, even though my school was low income and a lot of the students lived in poverty, I felt as though I could be myself. My principal, my assistant principal, they let me do whatever needed to be done to be there for my students. And I will say, being there, my caseload was the lightest ever. I only had 10 students on my caseload, and my teaching classes were no more than 6 students. So my experience was different. I was able to learn a lot, learn about the different cultures in Atlanta, learn about how the special education programs were different amongst the schools, amongst the district. But I will say that the special education program was very supportive. The one thing that I will note that I wish that the district would do more of is to provide more professional development for administrators when it comes to special education, because they feel as though sitting in an IEP meeting, that's all the learning that they need, and that's not true. So I feel like in order for them to know us, it's better for them to get the training that they need, as well as sit in those IEP meetings, so that they're not confused and that they can really see what's going on in our field.
Thank you. And I know our time is running short, but both Ms. Allen and Young have cited several of the challenges that were presented in the State of the Profession report in 2019 by Fowler, Coleman, and Bogdan. In closing, I'd like to say that we know that the faces of the children who are served in special education are Black and brown children, which says to me that it is critical that we begin to examine the positionality of teachers of color. African American teachers in particular are influencers. And we need to focus our attention on the retention of teachers of color. Urban schools, minority serving institutions, and HBCUs in particular We have a long-standing positive impact on preparation as well as quality educational experiences that we give our teacher candidates in our educator preparation programs. These two young scholars / alumni completed a dual education program, general and special education. They left our institution with a BS degree in elementary education and licensure in 3 areas: licensure in elementary education, licensure in general special education, general curriculum, and licensure in adaptive curriculum as well. Highly effective, highly marketable. However, their voices remain largely unexplored in the literature, and we are hoping to close that gap and add their commentaries to to the literature in regards to their experiences. We thank you for listening to us today. They are doing an outstanding job. Ms. Allen was just awarded Teacher of the Year. Ms. Young has been Rookie of the Year, Teacher of the Year as well. And Ms. Allen just graduated from George Washington University. And Ms. Young is completing her first year in her doctoral program at UCF. And so we thank them today for sharing their experiences. And we hope that you will reconsider, reimagine your place as an EPP in supporting your SETs and your SETs of color during the novice induction years. Thank you.